Thank you for joining Wars of the Roses. As we continue with Part 11, Symbolical Numbers Continued 5, 6, 8, 9, 12, from Facing the Sphinx by Marie L. Farrington. Chapter 10, 5, 6, 8, 9, 12. As for wisdom, what she is and how she came up, I will tell you and will not hide mysteries from you, but will seek her out from the beginning of her nativity and bring the knowledge of her into light, and will not pass over the truth. Solomon, the five-pointed star seen here, is also called the pentagram and the pentagon. In occult phraseology, it is supposed to represent the limbs of a man. This emblem is, like every other we have discussed in former chapters, of Egyptian origin. In the ritual and in the Book of the Dead, the ceremonies for disposing of the defuncts are minutely described. While perusing those ancient manuscripts, one is vividly impressed with the Egyptians' grand conceptions of the mysteries of life and death. Their passage on this earth was only a daily preparation for the transformation that takes place when leaving. Thus, the defunct man was portrayed as a pentagram, or five-pointed star, the points of which were supposed to represent the five limbs of a man, and he was also represented as a crocodile. Mr. Gerald Massey, the great symbologist, has identified the crocodile with the dragon of wisdom as a type of intelligence. Now, in esotericism, the human soul or mind is the fifth principle. Therefore, the five-pointed star is the synthesis of the man of our present race. He is said to be developing the fifth principle. In the Buddhist system of spiritual creative powers, reference is made to a group of so-called dhyani Buddhas, which is called the fifth group. It is linked mysteriously to the microcosmic pentagon, the five-pointed star typifying man. In India, as in Egypt, those celestial beings were identified with the crocodile and said to have their abode in the zodiacal sign of Capricornius. The latter is still the crocodile in India nowadays, whereas the fifth principle, manas, or the human soul, is considered by occultists as the synthesis of the four lower principles. In the same manner, the Greek philosophers made of ether, the fifth element, a combination of the other four. But the ether of the ancients was the akasa of the Hindus and was entirely different from the element of the same name recognized and accepted by science. The latter is identical with the astral light, so graphically described by Eliphas Levi and mentioned by St. Paul as the Prince of the Air. It is one of the lower subdivisions of primordial light. In the myth of Priapus, we find a dual being. There is a celestial Priapus, offspring of Bacchus and Venus, and a later Priapus, who has been identified with Agathodemon, the Gnostic savior. And even with Abraxas, he is blended with the mythical record of the different races which have lived on this earth. He is represented as standing on the tree of life, and our own race is clearly indicated by the five branches which have been cut off. The Holy of Holies of the King's Chamber in the Great Pyramid of Giza, the Tabernacle of Moses, the Holy of Holies of the Temple of Solomon, the Ark of the Covenant of St. Paul, Noah's Ark, the lily in Gabriel's hand, the lotus of the Hindus, the ship of the Quiches, Jacob's pillar, the fiery serpents of the Hebrews are identical symbols related to number 5. He in Hebrew is 5, the glyph of the womb, and twice 5 is 10, or the phallic number expressed thus, as seen here. And again, the double womb typifies the upper and lower heaven, or the spiritual and terrestrial duality. As above, so below, says the Zohar. All the ancient nations had a sanctum sanctorum, or adytum, in their temples, in which a sarcophagus or tomb was placed, from which the initiated candidate emerged in his impersonification of the resurrected solar God. The tomb was not only an emblem of spiritual rebirth, as expressed by St. Paul. Knowing this, that our old man is crucified with him, that the body of sin might be destroyed, that henceforth we should not serve sin, but also of cosmic, solar, and human resurrection or reawakening. Therefore the Jews, being exceedingly materialistic, set up their Holy of Holies as a sign of their monotheism, whilst it was but a universal phallic emblem rejected by the Kabbalists, who recognized only Ein Sof, and by the learned Sadducees, who respected nothing but the law. St. Paul, in his epistle to the Hebrews, chapter 9, says, "And after the second veil, the tabernacle, which is called the holiest of all, which had the golden censer, and the ark of the covenant overlaid round about with gold, wherein was the golden pot that had manna, and Aaron's rod that budded, and the tables of the covenant, and over it the cherubims of glory shadowing the mercy seat, of which we cannot now speak particularly. St. Paul did not wish to enter into the details as to the meaning of the ark, but he was not ignorant of symbolical law. He knew well enough that the ark and the mount sprung from the same ideograph, for he declares forcibly the same tenet in the following passage addressed to the Hebrews: who serve unto the example and shadow of heavenly things, as Moses was admonished of God when he was about to make the tabernacle. For see, saith he, that thou make all things according to the pattern showed to thee in the mount. The reader must bear in mind St. Paul's frequent admonitions that the letter killeth. The mount, the tree, and the ark are synonymous of the Great Mother, the womb of the universe. The cherubims of glory made the phallic glyph still more realistic. They were set up on the coffer or ark of the covenant, facing each other, with their wings spread in such a manner as to present to the sight a perfect yoni. The same shaped yoni was worshipped by all ancient nations, the Hindus included. The latter have preserved the original pattern, which is to be seen to the present day in their temples, such as it was ages ago. St. Paul wished to divulge the secret only to those who understood the spirit of the letter. No doubt can be entertained as to the meaning conveyed in the display of the Hebrew tabernacle, for it was further emphasized by the 4 mystic letters of the name Jehovah. The Yod, which according to the Kabbalah was the membrum virile, He, the womb, Vau, which is either a hook, crook, or a nail, and He, which had another significance besides the womb. It was also an opening. In another word, it was thus: Y, H, V, H, the male and female or bisexual symbol. Michael's taunt is better understood when David's dance before the ark is revealed in its true light. As an illustration, it is only one among many. The Old Testament does not solely contain allusions to customs that were as popular among the Jews as among the pagan nations of the world, but frequently denounces them in blunt terms. Out of the many examples we might cite, we will quote but one. It is taken from the prophet Hosea. They sacrifice upon the tops of the mountains, and burn incense upon the hills, under oaks and poplars and elms, because the shadow thereof is good. Therefore your daughters shall commit whoredom, and your spouses shall commit adultery. I will not punish your daughters when they commit whoredom, nor your spouses when they commit adultery. For themselves are separated with whores, and they sacrifice with harlots. Therefore the people that doth not understand shall fall. The degrading ceremonies described by the prophet Hosea were one of the features of the mount, tree, ark, tabernacle, or Great Mother worship, the remnants of which can be found nowadays in the Notch girls of the Hindu pagodas and the bad woman of Hong Kong. Such a deplorable state of affairs occurred when the metaphysical conception of the origin of all things had dwindled down into the gross symbol of the Hebrew deity. Primitively, space was the boundless sidereal ocean, the waters upon which face the Spirit of God moved. Noah's Ark typified the abstract idea of the container of all germs necessary to repeople the earth. The dove is the bird, imaging the supremacy of spirit over matter, and the olive branch, the end of a cataclysm, a new period of life to be inaugurated on the earth. Therefore, we find the ark or ship in the Genesis of the Quiches in their description of the reawakening of cosmos. It is reproduced in the mysteries as the naviform Arga, as an ever-living emblem of the female generative power. It is the sacrificial chalice of the high priests of all the goddesses who typified the generative powers of nature, of Isis, Venus, Aphrodite, Astarte, and others. It has survived in the sacrifice of the Mass among the Roman Catholics, the priest combining the dual emblem in the wine and water mixture which he drinks out of the mystic chalice. When represented as standing on the globe or on a crescent moon, the Holy Virgin Mary is identical with Isis, Venus, Ursa Major, and the Holy of Holies of the Hebrews. Mary impersonates the ship of life or nature, the abstract idea of the manifesting deity, and she is the Navi, arc or crescent, under which the female symbol of universal idea is typified. The Virgin Mary and the yoni of the Hindus emerged from the same source, and the same idea is rendered by either of them. Therefore, the nave of the church must be traced back to the same origin, as it comes from Navi's ship. It is the universal vessel of the Quiches, and of all archaic nations. Hargrave Jennings says, "The ark contained a table of stone. That table was phallic and identical with the same Jehovah, which written in unpointed Hebrew with 4 letters is Jev or JHVH, the H being merely an aspirate and the same as E. This process leaves us the 2 letters I and V in another form U. Then if we place the I in the U, we have the Holy of Holies, or the Linga and Yoni. Why are Christian missionaries blind or ignorant? Is there any difference between the Holy of Holies of the Jews and the Linga and Yoni of the Hindus? We can see none whatever. Both are the result of an attempt at personifying an abstract ideal of the infinite spirit and nature. In Egypt and India, the water lily, or sacred lotus, was given the same interpretation because it grows in the water and is the bearer of its own seed. Hence, the Archangel Gabriel appears to the Virgin Mary holding a lily in his hand. Occultists consider the 5th sign of the zodiac as the center from which diverged the following 3 divisions. The latter were primitively contained in Leo, as their unity before Virgo-Scorpio split up and became, by the interposition of Libra, 3 separate signs. Now, if we accept the inner interpretation of Leo as the sun or real Christ, we can easily perceive that Virgo, Libra, Scorpio are an astronomical myth related to the differentiation of matter. The 7th principle of the Buddhists is identical with the Christ of the Kabbalists, and the elements which became manifested through Virgo, Libra, and Scorpio were contained potentially in Leo. Virgo is the astral light, the virgin mother of the world, the illusion Maya of the Hindus. The arcane significance of Libra is easily fathomed when knowing that Scorpio typifies the fall, as recorded in every cosmogony. The reconcentration of those 3 signs and their reabsorption into Leo will lead into the dissolution of the phenomenal world just in the same manner as their separation has brought it forth. Therefore, the 9th sign corresponds to the 9 lights issuing from the crown, Zohar, and Aquarius, being twice 5, represents not only the human body, the 5 limbs of man, but also the macrocosm, the outward veil of hidden deity, because both are external objects of perception. Cassiopeia, the chair or the throne, is composed of 5 stars disposed like an M. M is a sacred letter in occultism because it combines the binary, that is the male and female with their progeny, or the dual being above and the trinity below. It is equivalent to number 5, that is a duad and a triad. It is also linked with Aquarius, thus as seen here. The 10th sign of the zodiac being frequently associated with the mythical crocodile or aquatic monster. For the letter M stands for water, either in the Aryan or Semitic language. In occultism, the pentagon is a sacred sign and a divine monogram expressing the initial letter of the most venerated names in the pantheons of pagan, Jewish, or Christian nations. For example, the 5th Buddha is called Maitreya, Minerva is the goddess of wisdom, Mary is the mother of the Messiah, and Moses is drawn out of the water, Exodus, by Pharaoh's daughter. The Christian Christ is intimately related to water baptism, the fishes of the zodiac, and the water lily. In number 6, we must consider the hexagon, or 6-pointed star as seen here, as the 6 limbs of the microprosopus. It is one of the symbols of the Christian Kabbalists, who represented under the figure of a double triangle, the 6 principles emanating from the light of the manifested Logos, or Word. They called it the lesser face, or countenance, and held it to be the prototype of man on the terrestrial plane. In Hinduism, the same ideograph is symbolized by Fohat, or the 7 suns, the 2 triangles being likewise synthesized by the point in the center. It answers to the bride, or our earth, of the Kabbalists. Those 2 triangles are frequently designated under the name of Solomon's seal. They typify the union of the 2 sexes. The 6-pointed star refers also to the 6 powers, or forces of nature, the 6 planes of consciousness, and the 6 principles of men, all of which emanate from the central point as 7, the perfect number. We must bear in mind that the Heavenly Virgin Mother, known under different denominations, but still identical in every philosophical system, is the abstract principle, source of all differentiation in the visible universe. Hence, the limbs of the microprosopus are 10 and 6, respectively. The Kabbalah teaches that the fiat lux of the initial chapter of Genesis is to be applied to the evolution of the Sephiroth, and not to light. The material substance which we know of Rabbi Simeon expresses it explicitly in the following words. O companions, companions, man as an emanation was both man and woman, Adam Kadmon, verily. And this is the sense of the words, let there be light, and it was light, and this is the twofold man, Zohar. It becomes obvious that the fiat lux of Genesis does not refer to the Adam of our race, for in him the androgen or dual being was separated. Therefore, figure 6, or the double, is the mythical earth in its autumn and winter sleep, waiting for Fohat, the bride or the higher Sephiroth, to infuse life and spirit into it at the reawakening period or spring and summer. The sage Ritchie had 7 wives, 6 of them were bad. The hidden one was the only virtuous one. Number 6 is also linked with the swastika or Jaina cross, and under this aspect, seen here is replete with meanings because it embraces the whole space, namely north, south, west, east, zenith, and nadir. It is said that the initial letters of the name Jesus Christ are to be interpreted in numbers, and that their numerical value is 600. The same figure is to be applied to the sign AO, the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and end being sixfold, as north, south, east, west, height, and depth. The same idea is personified in the Hindu god Kartikeya, who has 6 heads, and the Christ, or Horus, of the Gnostics, has 6 names and partakes of a sixfold nature. There are 3 fires and 3 waters in occultism. The upper triangle with its apex upwards is masculine, and the lower triangle being reversed is feminine, thus typifying unity in both sexes, or rather, the 2 sexes united. Such is the glyph embodied in the sixfold Christ, or the 2 triangles. Number 6 is one of the fundamental figures of the mystic system because it typifies the first emanation of the Logos, Word, or Christ, an emanation of the upper Sephirothal triad. The latter is essentially linked with the group called the Lions of Fire because they are related esoterically to the zodiacal sign of Leo. They form the nucleus of the archetypal world. In mystic reckoning, 7 is an outgrowth of number 6. It gives rise to a combination which requires always one more which is and yet is not. None has embodied this grand conception in his writings better than St. John in his masterpiece, Revelation. I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth, and there are 7 kings. 5 are fallen, and 1 is, and the other is not yet come. And when he cometh, he must continue a short space. And the beast that was and is not is stamped forever in the starry heavens as the Genitrix and her son, or the Great Bear and Lesser Bear. It is the foundation stone of the mythos which began with the Virgin Mother sitting upon the waters, then underwent a change of symbolism, and was transformed into a solar glyph when the stellar deity ceased to be the timekeeper. If we wish to search in the traditional records of all the ancient nations, we will always discover similar features in their Virgin Mothers, and their numerical value will correspond to the figure 666. Attributed by St. John to the beast of Revelation, Shushna, the lily, is 666. The Hebrew Hester is analogous to the Egyptian Shatar, or the betrothed, both answering to the description of the Kabbalistic bride, who is also the beast. Isis, Venus, Minerva, the Virgin Mary, the beast, etc., are symbolized either by the sistrum 3 S's or 666, and again the lotus lily. Seen here, they're identical types, for they were evolved from the double constellation of the 7 stars, hence the beast was androgynous. But its mythical transformation was due to the cyclic changes that occurred in the course of time when it became the 6-headed dragon. And I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast. Until now, the beast had the feet of a bear, according to the astronomical mythos, and the attributes of the Virgin Mother. But in its second aspect, it is only 6-headed, though its deadly wound was healed. And the woman who sat on the 7 hills, which were 7 kings, and also the 7 crowned heads of the beast, or Egyptian dragon, has never lost her prominent position. She is enthroned on the 7 hills of the eternal city, Rome, where she divides with the second beast, the divine honors proffered to her by the popish clergy. And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spake like a dragon. It is evidently the sun entering the sign of the ram, an emblem adored by the Christian world. This symbolism was continued from the Egyptians, who represented the second beast in its new phase of the third beast as a ram or lamb, with its 6 heads on the crocodile, who is always identical with the dragon. It is not correct, says Madame Blavatsky, to refer to Christ as some theosophists do, as the 6th principle in man, or in Hindu phraseology as Buddhi. The latter per se is a latent and passive principle, the spiritual vehicle of Atman, inseparable from the manifested universal soul. It is only in union and in conjunction with self-consciousness that Buddhi becomes the higher self and the divine discriminating soul. Christos is the 7th principle, if anything. And the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th and is of the 7 and goeth into perdition. Revelation chapter 17. Here we have the primitive emblem of the genitrix, or the Ogdoad as embodied by the Great Bear and her 7 sons. It is a form of the boundless, of the infinite, reproduced ad infinitum by every nation as the primary gods. In Akkad or Assyria, they are neither males nor females, but among the Quiches they are half males, half females, for they impersonate the struggles between the rulers of the upper and lower realms. In its primordial aspect, the beast is 8. Then as the manifesting deity, it becomes 7, the second beast. The latter, by losing 1 head, is 666, or the 6-headed dragon, which goeth into perdition and reappears transformed into the solar god, or Christos. The Ogdoad is a symbol of the abyss, of the spiral motion of cycles, and is also related to the glyph of the caduceus, Mercury's hieroglyph. Without him, neither Isis nor Osiris could accomplish anything. He was represented with the caduceus, the crescent, or the lotus, when typifying the philosophical Mercury, and with a reed or a roll of parchment, when personifying the advisor of Isis. In reality, the Ogdoad is understood frequently as the dual 4, which is identical with the below and above, the boundless infinite from whom emanated the Logos, or Word. The Word that in the beginning was with God, and that also was a God. The Christians apply it to Jesus Christ, but they must not forget that among the pagans, Mercury was the Word, the messenger of God. Another typical symbol of the 7 growing out of the 8 primitive gods we find represented in the mythical Melchizedek of the Hebrew Scriptures, who is represented as the Just One because he is Lord of the ecliptic or balance. It is an astronomical allegory arising from the 7 planets or great gods, who were evolved from the 8 primordial types. They appear in the traditions and records of ancient peoples as the mighty ones, the divine instructors of mankind. Hermes is portrayed sometimes armless under the form of a cube to express the power of speech and eloquence. It is he, as Mercury, who scatters through the universe the seminal principle that fecundates nature. Mercury, Hermes, Jesus Christ, the Logos, the Word are all abstract conceptions embodying the same eternal truth. Number 9 is the triple ternary. Occultists consider it as an unlucky number. They claim it to be the antithesis of number 6. However, the Zohar introduces number 9 in the initial scene of cosmic evolution as follows. When he first assumed the form, he caused 9 splendid lights to emanate from it, which shining through it diffused a bright light in all directions. That is, his own with the 9 together made 10, or as seen here. The Zohar is one of the books containing the secret teachings of the Jewish initiates. The word Zohar means light, and the passage just quoted answers entirely to the first chapter of St. John's Gospel, in which he says, "He was not the light, but was sent to bear witness of that light, for by him all things were made." In a work called the Book of God, a picture describing paradise according to Brahminical theology reproduces a 7-stepped mount with a flat top, in the midst whereof a square table is spread. The latter is ornamented with 9 precious stones and a silver bell, and upon the table lies a silver rose, which is the shrine of 2 women, who are only one in reality, but they are 2 in appearance. They are the dual beings, the celestial and terrestrial types, underlying every ancient religious system of this world. The lower world, says the Zohar, is created after the pattern of the upper, and everything existing above is to be found, as it were, in a copy on the earth. It was the highest deity itself which, according to Plato, built the universe in the geometrical form of the dodecahedron, and its first begotten was born of chaos and primordial light. The same ideograph was reproduced by the quiches in a tree covered with 10 fruits. By the tree stood a male and a female ready to pick the fruit from it, thus making up the 12 or dodecahedron of the universe. The latter is symbolized in Western esotericism by the Sephirothol tree, or Adam Kadmon of the Kabbalists, while Brahma represents the Pythagorean geometrical figures, that is, the dodecahedron in the East. In their primitive character, the two first principles of space and sky were overshadowed by the concealed breath of Kneph. They evolved the tree with the 10 fruits from which emanated the upper triad, or upper Sephiroth, and the 7 lower Sephiroth. No nation undertook to unite the absolute Benes with cosmic evolution, except the Aztecs, who used to celebrate a festival called the arrival of the 13 great gods. But it is rather an anomaly disavowed by the generations who received and preserved the early teachings of archaic races. 12 great orders of creative powers are linked in occultism with the 12 signs of the zodiac. But 7 of those divine hierarchies are connected with the 7 planets. From the 12 chief hierarchies which are recorded in the zodiac sprung the main points of theological legends. It would be preposterous to imagine that the 12 wonders performed by Hercules were only an astronomical allegory referring to the 12 signs of the zodiac. It is only a small part of the truth. A deeper meaning underlies the myth so often debated by the Greeks, who were aware of its mystic significance. Even the Jews recognized the deep import attached to number 12 by adopting it in their political and religious fanes. The 12 tribes of Israel displayed on their respective banners the 12 signs of the zodiac, which were originally only hieroglyphs before they were translated into pictures. Even in their Temple of Jerusalem, the 4 lunar subdivisions were surrounded by the 12 signs of the zodiac, and though we find therein the 7 lights of the candlestick, we know that the high priest wore 12 precious stones, uniting the symbol of the 7 planets, or planetary symbology, to the zodiacal myth. The Book of the Kings places the zodiacal cult on par with the lunar and solar worship. Christianity has not renounced the Jewish symbology, for the 12 wonders of Hercules are sculptured over the porticos of several cathedrals, such as the Church of Cognac, the northern entrance to Notre Dame of Paris, the Cathedral of Strasbourg, the Basilica of Saint-Denis, etc. Even the papal chair, when cleaned in 1662, still had the 12 wonders of Hercules portrayed in true pagan fashion. Moreover, it is prescribed by the Roman Church that while consecrating churches, the walls should be signed with the chrisma in the shape of a cross, 12 times in 12 different places. We may notice also the 36 crossings of the Syrian liturgy, which corresponded to the same number of the decans in the zodiac. The latter were 36 crossing stars wherefrom the Christian liturgy has been derived. In Revelation, St. John says, "In the midst of the street of it and on either side of the river was there the tree of life, which bare 12 manner of fruits, and yielded her fruit every month, and the leaves of the tree were for the healing of the nations." Chapter 22. We may here safely conclude that number 12 bore the same mystical significance among all the ancient civilized nations of our globe. It was the starting point of every cosmogony which culminated into the phenomenal world, and was recorded in the 12 zodiacal signs. Hence, the latter were first 8, then 10, and at last 12, as they embodied successively the evolution of the manifesting principle on the material plane. In the sublime description of the 13 divisions of the beard of Macroprosopus, which is frequently denominated the crown, and also the ancient one, occultists recognize the glyph for unity, because the Hebrew word akkad is synonymous with one. Unity adds up for 13. Therefore, the 13 great gods of the Aztecs may have been derived from the same ideograph. Thank you for watching, and please don't forget to share, like, subscribe, and comment. And if you can, please consider donating to Wars of the Roses. Links to PayPal and Patreon are in the description. Thank you so very much.